Imagine a world where the loudest voice is mistaken for the wisest, where virality trumps virtue, and where the roar of the crowd drowns out the whisper of the soul. Now stop imagining, because you're already living in it. In an age where knowledge is only a click away, genuine wisdom is slipping through our fingers. Why does our modern culture seem to applaud ignorance, glorify mediocrity, and worship the shallow, while silencing depth, intellect, and thoughtful reflection? Why are the thinkers retreating into the shadows, while entertainers bask under blinding spotlights? In this video, we confront a question that is as urgent as it is uncomfortable. How has stupidity become a celebrated cultural virtue? And what does that reveal about the slow death of wisdom in our time? Stay with us until the end, because the final truth we'll uncover is not just important, it's transformative. It may forever change how you see the world and how you see yourself. Before we begin, subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments so we can keep building a space for those who still value reflection, substance, and the kind of insight that cuts through the noise. What you're about to hear may not just surprise you, it may awaken something in you that's been sleeping for far too long. Let's begin. To understand why stupidity is being glorified, we first need to understand what wisdom truly is and what it is not. Wisdom is not just intelligence. It's not the same as data, facts, or even knowledge. As Socrates said, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Wisdom grows from humility. It's a quiet awareness of life's complexity and a refusal to make shallow judgments. It's something earned, never handed out. Something felt, not flaunted. But our cultural compass has shifted. We no longer value depth. We crave immediacy. We've abandoned the slow, patient unfolding of understanding, and we worship the quick fix, the viral quote, the bite-sized meme. Look at the figures we elevate today. Celebrities gaining millions of followers through controversy, not contribution. Influencers profiting from shock rather than substance. Politicians simplifying in order to manipulate instead of educate. In this world, volume equals visibility, and reflection equals irrelevance. The result? A generation drowning in information but starving for wisdom. German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warned that when society loses the ability to distinguish truth from illusion, decay sets in. That decay is already here. We see it in the collapse of meaningful conversation, in the rejection of nuance, and in the way public discourse has devolved into a shouting contest instead of a search for understanding. Ask yourself, when was the last time you saw a calm, intelligent discussion go viral? When was the last time you heard a political leader admit they didn't know something and were willing to learn? When did complexity stop being seen as depth and start being seen as weakness? In ancient times, wisdom was the highest virtue. The Greeks revered philosophers, the lovers of wisdom. The Egyptians saw wisdom as divine. Confucius in China taught endlessly about cultivating moral clarity and inner harmony. Today, such pursuits are treated almost as jokes. We say we value the wise, but we rarely reward them. We glorify those who entertain, not those who enlighten. As Carl Jung observed, thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge. Our culture has replaced thought with opinion, study with scrolling, and dialogue with debate. And this shift is not accidental, it is engineered. Social media algorithms reward outrage and oversimplification. Platforms amplify impulsive reactions, not careful consideration. Education systems, underfunded and overstandardized, seem more concerned with producing obedient workers than thoughtful citizens. So, what does this mean for us? It means that if you want to think deeply, you have to swim against the current. You must reject the lie that speed matters more than accuracy, that style matters more than substance, and that popularity is the same as truth. We have to ask, who benefits when we stop thinking for ourselves? Who profits when we are too distracted to question the stories we're being sold? Why is stupidity not just tolerated, but celebrated? As Noam Chomsky once said, the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum. In other words, we are given the illusion of choice, of freedom, of knowledge. It surrounds us. Yet most of it is curated, manipulated, and carefully engineered to keep us from truly waking up. But here's the hopeful truth. Wisdom is not dead. It has merely retreated into hiding, like a seed lying dormant beneath the soil, waiting for the right season to emerge. It still lives, in the quiet corners, in the books gathering dust on forgotten shelves, in the long, unhurried conversations, in the moments of solitude that so many now fear. It lives in you if you dare to turn your gaze inward instead of being endlessly pulled outward. The question is, what will it take for wisdom to rise again? How can we reclaim the virtues that once shaped civilizations, the same virtues that built vast libraries, inspired sacred texts, and ignited revolutions? We'll explore this in the next segment, because if our culture now glorifies stupidity, then wisdom must not only be remembered, but resurrected, practiced, and lived, and you may be far more capable of that than you realize. But if wisdom is in hiding, where exactly has it gone, and why did we allow it to fade? To answer that, we have to confront how the very structure of the modern world is designed to pull us away from introspection and push us into constant distraction. In past ages, wisdom was not a rare luxury reserved for elites. It was woven into everyday life. It was there in the dialogues of Plato, the meditations of Marcus Aurelius, the teachings of Lao Tzu. Wisdom wasn't just respected, it was expected. Fast forward to today, and we live in an attention economy where your focus is currency, and everyone is desperate to spend it for you. Apps are engineered to hijack your dopamine circuits. News is crafted to provoke outrage, not to foster understanding. Schools are pressured to deliver quick, measurable results, turning students into statistics and teachers into test administrators. In this climate, there's no space for reflection, only reaction. And wisdom, by its nature, is slow. It asks questions that can't be answered in a sound bite. It forces you to think deeply, to sit with discomfort. That makes it inconvenient in a culture that worships speed, simplicity, and gratification. So, over time, it's quietly discarded, not necessarily through malice, but through a gradual, systematic, almost invisible neglect. This is how stupidity rises to cultural prominence, not through an explicit conspiracy, but through a collective drift toward what is easy and instantly rewarding. True critical thinking means challenging your own assumptions. Seeking wisdom means walking a road that offers no guarantees of comfort or validation. But today's culture rewards shallow certainty over thoughtful doubt. Our heroes now gain influence not through profound ideas, but through sheer volume of output. Politicians win votes with catchy slogans, not complex truths. Celebrities dominate public discourse, while scholars, sages, and truth-seekers are pushed to the margins. And the message is clear. Fame outweighs knowledge, visibility equals authority, and the loudest voice deserves the largest audience. We are living in many ways what philosopher Neil Postman warned to be, out in amusing ourselves to death. He argued that we don't need more facts, we need better ways to interpret them. Yet here we are, drowning in data, starved for meaning, overstimulated but under-reflective, constantly connected yet profoundly lost. The most dangerous part? Many no longer even notice the absence of wisdom because stupidity has been normalized. It's been packaged as humor, softened through irony, and disguised as entertainment. When foolishness becomes funny, it becomes acceptable. When it becomes acceptable, it becomes invisible. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, how often do you seek out content that truly challenges you, not by offending, but by forcing you to rethink something you've always believed? When was the last time you sat with a single thought for more than 5 minutes without reaching for your phone? These aren't accusations, they're invitations, because awareness is the first step toward reclaiming what has been lost. The death of wisdom carries a profound cost. It's not just intellectual, it's emotional, spiritual, and societal. Without wisdom, people become easier to manipulate, more reactive, more tribal, more divided. The result is a world filled with noise, conflict, and division, but very little true understanding. This isn't just a cultural trend, it's a crisis of meaning. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust, once wrote that when a person cannot find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. And our culture is addicted to pleasure, but starving for meaning. Wisdom is the bridge between the two. It doesn't just teach us how to live, it dares to ask why. And perhaps that is exactly why it is feared, because true wisdom demands that we are forced to confront the chaos within, to face our insecurities, our ignorance, and our quiet complicity. Wisdom demands that we stand before a mirror and ask the most dangerous question of all: who am I, ally? Not the version defined by what we consume, what we wear, or how many followers we've gathered, but the self that remains when every external layer is stripped away. That question terrifies most people, which is why so few dare to ask it. Distraction is safer. It's easier to laugh along with stupidity than to sit in the stillness of wisdom. Yet here you are, still listening. And that matters. It means there is a hunger inside you, a longing for something deeper, something real. You are part of a growing group of people who are tired of the shallow waters and are ready to dive beneath the surface. So, what can be done? First, reclaim your attention. Your focus shapes who you become. Guard it as you would a sacred space. Refuse to let algorithms dictate your beliefs. Read more than you scroll. Think more than you react. Reflect more than you speak. Second, challenge what the world glorifies. Popularity is not proof of value. Fame is not evidence of wisdom. Learn to separate charisma from character, entertainment from enlightenment. Third, seek silence. Wisdom never shouts, it whispers, and you must be still enough to hear it. Create space for solitude. Ask yourself hard questions and resist the urge to answer too quickly. Finally, surround yourself with people and ideas that lift you higher. Build your own circle of thinkers, a tribe that values growth, truth, and depth. Wisdom is contagious, but so is stupidity. Choose your influences with care. In the next segment, we will see that the glorification of ignorance is more than a cultural trend. It is a spiritual erosion. We'll examine how our obsession with the superficial is not only dismantling public discourse, but hollowing out the human soul. We will also begin uncovering ancient pathways that can lead us forward, not back into the past, but toward a higher state of clarity, meaning, and consciousness. The death en pensée. If wisdom is not permanent, but the longer we delay, the harder the resurrection becomes. And when a culture abandons wisdom, what takes its place? The answer is disturbing. When wisdom dies, the soul falls silent, and into that silence, emptiness floods in. But nature abhors a vacuum, so instead of allowing silence to open the door to insight, we fill it with noise. Distraction becomes the new meditation. Consumption becomes the new contemplation. The self, once a temple of inquiry, becomes a billboard of trends. This is more than a social decline. It is a spiritual collapse. True wisdom is spiritual at its core, not necessarily in a religious sense, but in the way it transcends the material. It compels us to ask not only how to live, but why we are here. It searches for the eternal within the fleeting. It recognizes the hidden patterns beneath life's chaos. Yet in a culture obsessed with materialism, such questions are not just ignored, they are mocked. How often have you heard someone say, "That's too deep," or "You think too much," as if depth were a flaw and thinking a burden? This subtle disdain for introspection is not merely cultural, it is institutional. We have built systems that punish complexity and reward conformity. Schools often prize memorization over imagination. Workplaces value output over reflection. Social media favors outrage over nuance. And we wonder why wisdom has faded. It hasn't vanished. It has been displaced. The real question is, who benefits from that displacement? Asking it is the first step toward awakening. Because when people lose the ability to think critically and reflect deeply, they become far easier to control. This is not conspiracy. It is psychological reality. A distracted mind is a compliant mind. Shallow thinkers are easier to manipulate than thoughtful ones. This is why advertisers don't want you to think, they want you to feel. and why governments so often prefer obedience over wisdom. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Only the educated are free." But today, we mistake indoctrination for education. We teach people what to think, not how to think. We flood them with opinions while starving them of perspective. And slowly, quietly, the soul forgets how to seek. That is the true death of wisdom, not when it is attacked, but when it is forgotten. Ask yourself, when was the last time you saw a film that honored a truly wise person? Not a prodigy, not a rebel, but someone whose life radiated humility, depth, and moral clarity. When was the last time you saw a trending video that celebrated virtue without irony? We no longer elevate these values. We package and sell them. Even authenticity has been repurposed as a marketing strategy. Mindfulness has been reduced to an app notification. Sacred, ancient practices have been rebranded as productivity hacks. Meditation is no longer a doorway to stillness. It's a tool to optimize output. Reading is no longer for insight. It's for building a personal brand. This isn't just ironic. It's tragic. We have traded transcendence for transaction, and in doing so, we have severed our connection to what is greater than ourselves. And yet, here is the paradox. Beneath the constant noise, the hunger for wisdom endures. It speaks in quiet moments. It stirs in the hollowness after hours of mindless scrolling. It rises when we sit in nature and remember, if only for a heartbeat, that life is more than consumption. The human spirit still yearns for truth, for meaning, for depth. Abraham Maslow called it the need for self-actualization, the longing to become our fullest selves, not as society defines us, but as we truly are. And that journey is impossible without wisdom, not information, not credentials, wisdom. The kind that reveals who we are beyond our roles. The kind that reminds us that happiness without purpose is only a numbing agent. The Bhagavad Gita tells us, the wise seer, in knowledge and action as one. The Tao Te Ching teaches that knowing others is intelligence, but knowing yourself is true wisdom. The Gospel of Thomas records Jesus saying, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not, it will destroy you." All of these point to the same truth. Wisdom lives within us, buried under noise, fear, ego, and distraction. And it can be reclaimed, but only through effort and through courage. The courage to be misunderstood, the courage to walk away from the crowd, the courage to sit with uncomfortable truths that offer no instant reward, only the slow evolution of the soul. Such courage is rare because it requires a kind of death, the death of the false self. The part of us that craves approval more than authenticity, the part that conforms for safety, even when conformity suffocates the spirit. Wisdom demands that we shed this skin again and again to reveal who we truly are. And when we begin to live from that place, something powerful happens, something the status quo fears, because the wise are not easily controlled, they are not easily entertained, they see beyond the illusion, they act from inner authority, not external validation, and that is precisely what the world needs now. In the final segment of this video, we will explore how to resurrect wisdom in your own life, practically, spiritually, and culturally. We will look at the habits, mindsets, and shifts that can return you to clarity, truth, and depth. Because wisdom is not dead, it is waiting. The question is, will you answer the call? You do not need to be a scholar or a monk to begin. You only need to be radically honest, with yourself, with the world, and with how you live. The resurrection of wisdom does not begin on a mountaintop. It begins in the everyday, in how you observe, how you speak, and what you choose to value. It begins when you stop asking, "What do I want right now?" and start asking, "What truly matters?" This shift, though quiet, is revolutionary. You begin to understand that wisdom is less about having the right answers and more about asking the right questions. You stop trying to fill every silence and instead listen to the spaces between words. You stop seeing people as opinions to defeat or allies to validate you, and start seeing them as mirrors, reflecting the parts of yourself you've yet to understand. You stop racing to win and start living as if life is a mystery to be explored. To live wisely today is to rebel. It is to choose patience in a culture addicted to speed, to choose truth in a world built on deception, and most of all, to choose depth in a society that worships the surface. It's not an easy path, but it's the only one that leads somewhere real. So, where do you begin? First, simplify. Wisdom does not grow in chaos. It needs room to breathe. Clear the mental clutter. Limit your exposure to meaningless noise. Guard your mind the way you would guard your home from toxins. What you allow into your attention becomes the architecture of your soul. Second, read deeply, not just anything, but the words of those who have walked this road before you. Marcus Aurelius, who showed that perception shapes reality. Thich Nhat Hanh, who taught us to breathe through suffering. Carl Jung, who revealed that facing the shadow is the only path to light. The voices of Simone Weil, Alan Watts, Rumi, Krishnamurti. Not to worship them, but to remember what humanity is capable of when it turns inward and truly listens. Third, practice solitude. Wisdom doesn't shout through the noise, it emerges in the stillness. Take walks without your phone. Sit in silence. Let boredom return, for boredom is often the doorway to insight. Ask the questions that make you tremble, not to get quick answers, but to awaken something deeper. Fourth, observe yourself. How do you speak to others? What do you chase and why? Are you guided by your values or by validation? Do you consume more than you create? Do you run from discomfort or allow it to teach you? Fifth, seek conversations that elevate you. Surround yourself not with echo chambers, but with people who challenge you to grow, people who make you think, not just agree. Wisdom is not a solo journey. It is a flame passed from mind to mind, heart to heart. And finally, perhaps most radically, learn to live slowly, not lazily, not passively, intentionally. Slow down enough to taste your food, to watch the sunset, to hear the meaning beneath someone's words, to notice your own breath, to recognize the sacred in the ordinary. Because wisdom is not found in extraordinary moments. It is revealed in the way you live the ordinary ones. Our ancestors knew this. The mystics, shamans, and philosophers all taught the same truth in different tongues. The wise are not those who know the most, but those who see the most clearly. And clarity is only possible when the mind is still, the heart is open, and the soul is listening. So let us remember what we've forgotten, that being loud is not the same as being right, that being famous is not the same as being wise, that being entertained is not the same as being enlightened. The death of wisdom was never inevitable. It was a choice, and every choice can be reversed. We can bring wisdom back, not as an abstract concept, but as a living presence, through our choices, our relationships, and the way we act when no one is watching. We do this not by condemning the modern world, but by healing ourselves within it. Because the truth is, ignorance is not just out there, it lives in us too, in our egos, in our laziness, in our craving for comfort over consciousness. The real battle is not fought in comment sections, it is fought in the quiet moments of decision. Will I scroll, or will I reflect? Will I consume, or will I create? Will I perform, or will I be? These are the questions that shape everything. And now, the final truth. Wisdom is not something you find, it's something you become. It isn't locked away in oaks, ruins, or secret societies. It hides in your daily choices, in your willingness to question, in your courage to see, in your humility to change. The modern world may glorify foolishness, but you do not have to. You can choose differently. You can choose to awaken, and when you do, you become a light, not loud, not flashy, but unshakable. Because wisdom may not trend, it may not go viral, it may never entertain the masses, but it endures. And in a world that forgets, to remember is a sacred act. So remember, think deeply, live wisely, and never underestimate the quiet revolution that begins within you.